let me touch on something really quick. Like I remember in our Discord, we were talking about Souls likes and action games. So in the last few years, like Souls like games have been like taken over. We've had more Souls like games than like hack and slash action games.
Yeah.
Now, what do you guys prefer? Do you prefer Souls like games or do you prefer like action games?
Well,
Before we move on.
I think everyone kind of has the wrong idea about Souls like games. I think people treat Souls like games like they're action games, but they're not action games. They are RPGs. They are RPGs. They are action RPGs essentially. Um, and they are not. So people will be like, "Oh man, I hate the direction that action games are going in." I'm like, "What do you mean? Action games are going in a dead direction because there really aren't any." And they were like, "What about Souls games?" It's like Soul games are not supposed to be fast because they're RPGs. They are not supposed to be these fast-paced action games because they're slow because you have to build your character up to a particular point and that takes time because this is an RPG. This is not an action game. This is just an action RPG. Yes, there's action in it, but the act it's just how you go about doing the battle that is not turn based, so it is action. It's an action RPG, but this is not the game we're looking at. This is an action game. Like this is not an RPG at all, you know? All of it is about the action. So it's like, well, yeah, so I think people that's a apples and oranges comparison. But people make that comparison because there aren't really any action games around. So that's all they got, you know. They forgot what an action game is. So that's why when shit like Ninja Gaiden 2 and stuff, it feels like, oh, they're so revitalized. Like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before. It's like, yeah, because you never played an action game before. You grew up playing fucking Souls games, and those aren't really action games. Those are RPGs, and they never were meant to be. It's not like they did something wrong. Like when you look at the origins of what those games are, they come from they're just, hey, what if you were playing an RPG but you can actually do the stuff? That's it. Like that's they're supposed to be. So they're not supposed to be like character action games, you know? So yeah, you need to compare it to like Devil May Cry 5 or and when you look at those games are not slow, they're not like Souls games. So I think it's dangerous to compare a Souls game, let's say, to like that because then you risk like, oh well, Souls games shouldn't be or like this. The Souls like shouldn't be like this because action games, blah blah blah. It's like no, you're comparing two different genres.
Yeah,
It's doing what it's doing correctly. It's not an action game. Like action
yeah.
games are completely different things,
Yeah.
But I see that a lot. So to answer the question, I don't have a choose one or the other. They're different genres. Like
Okay.
I was about to say what action games? All the action game creators are dead.
yeah, right. Exactly. What
Like,
what fucking action game? The last one is Devil May Cry 5. It's
No,
like,
we got
yeah,
we got Ninja Gaiden 4
eh,
uh
wrong.
on the way. But you know,
Ninja Netta, uh, Vanquished Edition.
yeah, I say I like both. I think that I guess right now in this era, I like Souls like games better because I like the progression, I like the difficulty. Not saying the action games can't be difficult because they they are.
It's
They
a
really
different,
are.
it's a different type of difficult.
Yeah, it's a
It's kind of
different
like
type.
what Tevin was talking about. Like they're not; these are two different categories completely. So they're not even
yeah, they're
remotely the
really
same.
not comparable. You really can't
Yeah,
compare them. It's kind of like trying to compare a Final Fantasy boss and why it's difficult to comparing why like a Ninja Gaiden boss is difficult. It's like, well, they're difficult for two different reasons. You know?
yeah. Like in the Souls games, I feel like you are you a regular man. Sometimes you're a regular man with a sword and shield trying to progress through this seemingly impossible thing.
Hellscape,
And
where
yeah,
everyone wants to kill you.
yeah, everything
Yeah.
wants to kill you, and you're fighting things that are like bigger and better than you. Like as opposed to like action games, like even though they're hard, it's like you feel badass from like the get go. he like I'm badass. I know I'm dying. Uh, but once I get it down, I know I got this because I'm just cool. I'm Dante. Like
Yeah.
who's gonna stop Dante?
Well,
Yeah,
well, that's see, that's how like the Capcom or let's say the like Platinum like action games feel like they make you
Mm,
feel like you're Johnny Badass at the beginning, you
mm,
know? But Ninja Gaiden, that's why, I kind of feel a certain way about Ninja Gaiden 4 because Ninja Gaiden is literally the opposite of that. Ninja Gaiden makes you feel like you were a bitch in the beginning.
mm.
Like they make you feel like, yeah, you can swing your sword and jump around and run on walls, but they can do that too. Now what? And there's 10 of them and there's only one of you. So now what's gonna fucking happen? And you're like, okay, well, I'll just, run on the walls and dodge and do things better than you. They're like, yeah, but they ain't waiting their turn. They
yeah,
all
not
about
Yeah,
to jump
all.
on you at once. And so
I,
how you gonna handle that?
I
And you
cut
just
their
gotta
heads
figure out the answer. There's no like, oh, you just do this. It's like, no, you just gotta figure it the fuck. It's like playing a fighting game. It's like you
yeah,
really just gotta figure it the fuck out. Like, okay, block this dude, dodge here, attack, 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 charge, use my invincibility frames on this charge to like you gotta play the game. You gotta actually get good at the game just to beat the game. Like, whereas in Devil May Cry is more about like getting scores and shit. It's like you
yeah,
getting good at that game is like getting ranks. It's like, oh, okay, like I was able to keep this rank going for this long because I did this big ass combo on this enemy, you
yeah,
know, without getting hit. It's like they're
yes.
kind of different games. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like they're the same genre, but how they go about expressing themselves in their genre is opposite. And so it's like that's why it's a bit frustrating um for people to kind of compare the two because it's kind of well, I mean, you can compare them. They are
yeah,
comparable, but it's
yeah,
like it's just like when people say they're the same, like they don't compare them. I guess is what I'm saying. Like they just like,
yeah,
oh well, yeah, this is a character action game and that's a character action game. They're all the same. It's like no, no, like it's like saying Tekken is the same thing as Dead or Alive. It's like well, they're both
yeah,
3D fighting games, but like how they actually go about it's like doing the same thing is actually really different, you know. Uh, so
yeah. I agree. I agree.